Music, dance, theater. It's time to take a seat on the aisle with Tom Alvarez. Hear from performers, producers, presenters, and creators who enrich our lives in the performing arts. Who's on stage? Here is Tom Alvarez to introduce you.
Hello, and welcome to On the Aisle with yours truly, Tom Alvarez. Today's guest is Jeffrey Biegel. Trained at the Julliard School, he is a prolific pianist, composer, arranger, recording artist, educator, and entrepreneur. Join me now as I go on the aisle for my conversation with Jeffrey. Hello there.
Hi, how are you?
How are you? I have to give you credit for your quiet persistence. I appreciate it. I can see, I read your bio, and it was head spinning. And the part that refers to all of your, talents, including entrepreneur, and I could see very clearly why it is that I didn't get through your whole bio, by the way. I mean, it was like I found you, I Googled you, and I actually read the one that the Dallas Symphony put out. It was very extensive, and I'm simply amazed. So, how is it that you found me? How did we become Facebook friends? Because we have people in common, probably.
That's what it is. It becomes a network that just like a spider web, and you never know really where the spider is, but you know that there's a web there that connects.
Well,
and
because I cover the performing arts, as you know, I'm sure you're aware of that, right? Obviously,
of course.
So, there's so many people in the entertainment business, period, that my tentacles, I've been doing this for a long time, almost 50 years. And so my network just gets bigger and bigger, what with this podcast. And I thought maybe, but again, it's probably because we know a lot of people in common. In particular in the symphony world, you've appeared with the Indianapolis Symphony, have you not?
I was just thinking about them this morning, so I played with them at the Prairie in 2006.
Okay, Connor Prairie. All right. And do you remember what it was that you performed?
I actually played the Billy Joel. It's a concerto based on some of his classical pieces. So Stuart Molina conducted, and I had received permission from Billy and to take some of those pieces, and I kind of fattened up the piano parts for a concerto, and Philip Keverin orchestrated, and I raised the money to hire Philip to do the orchestration around the piano part, which was an interesting way to do it. He did a great job, and that was the piece we did. It was a lot of fun.
Do you recall the venue itself?
Oh, I loved it. It was it was so beautiful outside there. It's like a kind of place you don't want to leave.
Yeah. Well, it's one of my favorite venues. It's the only place that I've ever been. I'm sure there are other outdoor theaters. Have you played either conducted or played at venues like Wolf Trap and the Hollywood Bowl and places like that?
I did over this last summer when we did the premiere of the Rhapsody in Red, White, and Blue by Peter Boyer was at Deer Park with the Utah Symphony, which was beautiful. And this past summer with Pacific Symphony, we did Great Park Live in Irvine, which is very beautiful. There was a place once I played in Big Sky, Montana for a July 4 concert, and it was amazing. Just the lighting. California had festivals. We did just when the sun sets and all. It's a very beautiful.
Well, I bet you have seen some incredible have performed or or you're also a conductor, right?
No, I would like to. I do it like on my own so when nobody could
Oh,
see.
okay. Okay.
Or when I'm teaching, I do it at
You
the piano
probably
too.
could based on everything else you're able to do. You know,
I'd
you're
like to. I don't know if I want to be responsible for 60 people in front of me. I remember when was in England recording uh, with Leonard Slatkin. We were doing the Leroy Anderson concerto, and he says, "Do you conduct?" I said, "No." He says, "You should." And
Mhm.
it's maybe one day I'll just have the guts to really attempt it and get some lessons to perfect what I'm doing. I'm kind of like I'm like the person who's like the kid in front of the mirror conducting the orchestra recording and wishing I was one of them. But I'm almost a wannabe conductor, but I do employ the conducting, a lot of choral also. I studied choral conducting at Julliard, and I'm very amazed by that because that really translates into piano playing.
Oh my goodness. So you've also conducted choruses. Well, that's of special interest to me because I performed with the Indianapolis Men's Chorus uh,
Really.
for about
Mhm.
6 years. This isn't all about me, but I just reviewed their last concert and it reminded me about how much I missed it and how much I love choral music, having and sitting in on those and this is of course is a volunteer, it's a gay chorus, and all the men in that chorus, many of them are educators themselves, so I felt like I was in a master's class.
That's incredible. Well,
Mhm.
I love choral music. I've actually composed not a lot, but a fair number of pieces of choral music, mostly the pieces that get performed holiday time, the Hanukkah Fantasy and Christmas in a Minute. So I've done some choral writing. I've always loved that. A
Hmm.
cappella double choir, Psalms from the Bible when I was about 22, 3. Uh, I enjoyed doing that. And
What
I
was the
always
title of the Hanukkah piece?
the
What was it
Hanukkah
called?
Fantasy.
Oh, I would love to hear that. Is
Yeah.
it available somewhere?
YouTube has several recordings of it,
Oh.
performances with symphony orchestras. It gets play every year. I get the reports from the
Oh,
publisher.
I'll have
And
to mention that to the music director or the artistic director of the chorus because
oh,
they're
that'd be
always,
great. Yeah,
yeah, because they do a great Christmas concert, but they always like to, work in music of other faiths and cultures. So that
sure.
might be a great option. Yeah.
That'd
And
be great.
yeah. So tell me about, I want to go back at your early years. You were three and you had an operation and you were not able to speak or hear, but that it was corrective surgery. And from that time on, you became Jeffrey Biegel. I mean, I'm just amazed. What a story. What a story. Tell me all about
Yeah.
that.
Well, I never really thought much about it until I was in my late 20s, and I was
Mhm.
playing a concert with the an orchestra in Pennsylvania, Lancaster Symphony, and the uh, journalist did a pre-concert story for the concert and asked me the same questions. I said, "Well, yeah, when I was a little boy, I wasn't 100% deaf, but it was almost like you were in in the water of a swimming pool and you were trying to hear somebody talk. It was very muffled, and then I had surgery to correct that, remove the fluid from the ears and poke the eardrum and get things going. And I took piano lessons at age 7, and then he said, "Whoa, back up." And we talked about that. And I thought, I never gave much thought to it. I never told my teacher at Juilliard about it because it didn't mean anything to me anymore. And I didn't think it was so important. But I guess when you survey a life and you see where things started and where they evolved to, like some people say, well, did it change you? I said, no, my teacher once said, people don't change, they just reveal themselves. And I don't think things change. I think they just evolve. So maybe it had a part in my evolution as a person and a musician, but I didn't
Mhm.
realize it because it was my normal. That was me. So I didn't question it. It wasn't anything
Yeah.
unusual to me.
Yeah.
But it was. I mean, it probably forced me to do everything outside the box, the norm. I
Mhm.
do remember not being able to hear 100% and looking behind me all the time to see if someone was there. Still
Mhm.
remember. Uh,
Well,
but my
it's just so, what it's just is so ironic, ironic. That's was my first reaction. The irony that, that you were born that way, and yet I mean, it's like a miracle, really. I don't know what I don't know if you're religious or spiritual, but what are your thoughts about things like destiny and fate and
Oh
all
yeah, I
that?
think everything. I think I once did a new piece by Richard Daniel Poor, the composer. It was with the Pacific Symphony in California, and that was back in 2010. And he said to a crowd of people, I just look at that piece of music and I'm like, how did I ever write that? And I said that everybody was quiet, didn't know the answer. And I looked at him. I said, the piece was written already. You just had to do it. So
Ah.
I do believe that things are, I mean, people talk about God and everything, but there is a presence of energy, which I do believe is something like when people say it's fate or it's destiny or it's coincidence, there is an energy that kind of connects the dots. It's like spiritual internet. And
Mhm.
I think that's just whatever, like people say, about kids going to college. Where are they going to go to college next year? I say, wherever they're supposed to be, they'll be.
Mhm.
And
I
as
think
I
you
get
can, don't you
older,
think?
yeah,
I believe that, if I look back on my life, it's clear to me that everything that happened in my life, the bad and the good, it's all brought me to this point, and it's like the dots were connected.
well,
Uh,
that's it. When people ask me advice, especially high school students, when I'm doing concerts and I go to visit these schools to do educational outreach, and they say, "Yo, what's your advice to these young people? What do you tell them to do, for their future?" And I say, everybody's different. I said, everybody has their own yellow brick road, and you just have to follow it. And
mm,
be very careful because there'll be people out there that are your friends, and there are people out there who pretend to be your friends, and there are people out there who are clearly not. And you'll know over time who they are, how to identify
mhm,
with them, and how to build relationships with these people or
mhm.
not. And
Tell
that
me,
goes for everything.
tell me about your family, your mom and your dad.
Oh, yeah. So my father was actually the youngest captain, appointed captain in the New York City Police Department. And he was very young and he worked his way up. We were just talking about it before. He worked his way up from, I mean, originally he wanted to be a lawyer and he wanted to be a industrial arts teacher. He went to NYU and dropped out after a year because it was too expensive for his parents to do it. And he went to the police academy and he worked his way up to patrolman, sergeant, lieutenant, and captain. My grandfather, his father, worked his way up to lieutenant. So he kind of followed in the family trade. And he did all that. And at the age of 49, he retired from the police department and became director of security for a big hospital in Long Island. My mom raised the children, but she had an incredible voice, a very high coloratura voice, and she would put on records of crooners, whether it's women or men singing songs she knew, and she would sing along with them. And it was a very bell-like, sweet sound, and that I remember. But that's basically the most of how I remember everything. The other recollection would be my oldest sister who played piano. And when I was a little boy, I used to hear her taking lessons, and I would be obnoxious and go to the piano. Well, I didn't think it was obnoxious. I was very inquisitive. And I've told her this before, and I have her stand at concerts and tell people the story because she would finish playing. I'd go to the piano and try to figure out what it was that she played because I wanted to communicate through the piano. That was my best way of doing it. And I used to figure out what she was doing just by ear. And I played little songs and this and that. But I remember my father used to say, listen to her play. There's so much feeling. It's musical. He didn't use the word musical. There's a lot of feeling in the sound. There's a lot of feeling in her playing. And I was the racehorse. I would play the piano like just like a like a kid going through a toy store. It was just that was
Uh-huh.
my time. And I had a natural facility, and it took a long time to be able to bring the musical knowledge up to that level. But that's what I remember. Mostly,
Okay.
those are my greatest recollections.
So you mentioned a sister. Did you have other sibs?
Yes, two other sisters, and one played violin and one played well, clarinet for a little bit, but everybody appreciated music. And I used to play piano with my sister who played violin, and then
Hmm.
she stopped playing. But music was always around. It was important. And my father loved Rhapsody in Blue. I mean, he would always.
Well, I certainly want to talk about Rhapsody. The
Uh,
last thing about your family growing up. So when did you start your training? When did you start? And was it piano? Did you play other instruments? Tell me about that.
yeah, I started lessons at 7. The teacher who taught my sister started me on the very basic John Schaum series. It was the Green Book, the pre-A book. And I did that for like about 2.5 years. I had this teacher who was wonderful. And he took me right through the A book, the B book, the C book, the D book, and the piano pieces for children and adults, and the 12 Clementi sonatinas and Hanon exercises and scales. In about 3 years, he did all that. And then I went to another teacher for 6 years. And then I went to my teacher at Julliard when I was 16. So it was a very basic, normal upbringing. I wasn't treated differently in any way. And, going to suburban school, public school system, I played piano, but, it was just like, not like, oh, well, he's different. I knew I always felt different, and I still do because I do things with repertoire and with musicians and people that classical pianists just really never quite did. And but I enjoy it all. So that was the upbringing.
Hmm.
And
Okay,
I did
so
play other instruments. I played well, we had a sousaphones. We didn't have tubas. We had the sousaphones that wrapped around your neck. And then I played baritone horn and I attempted to sing. And most of the time, the choir directors would put me at the piano. But
uh-huh.
fun.
So tell me about Rhapsody in Blue. That seems to be that is looms in your bio. It's you have a long connection with it, correct?
Yes. Uh,
Gershwin in general.
well, yeah, I mean, my father loved the piece. I think he had one of the original 30, no, there was a 78 record of it. They don't know what happened to it. It was the one that was a blue vinyl or some, I don't know, shellac record. But he always loved it, and he knew it the way it had been played, more not as classically romantic. And I'll never forget, I played it once, before he passed, and he said, "You finally got it." It was a piece that I learned when I was about 9. I learned just the main theme, the love theme, but it was in the key of F major, the simplified version. Then I started to learn the solo version, which was harder than just when you play with orchestra. So I already tackled the difficult solo version that didn't have orchestra. Then I started to play it with orchestra and learned that version. Then I learned the version, the critical edition from 1924, Manuscripts and Recordings by Ryan Banyagala, that came out a few years ago. And then this version, and that there's so many versions of it, but I learned from listening to Gershwin's playing what he was after. Very straightforward, no swing, no jazz kind of bouncy rhythms. It was very straightforward, ragtime like. The dance rhythms, the Freilich and the Kazatsky and the Charleston and all these ethnic dances of Eastern Europe and New York. And I approached it more that way, and it made more sense, especially when I learned his other pieces like the Blue Monday opera and all the missing preludes and the impromptu and two different keys and the lullaby and all these things. It made sense what he was doing, and that's how I assimilated it. But what I did learn later on in life was, he had this love for Debussy and Ravel. He went to meet Ravel in Paris, and Ravel asked him how much money he made, and he told him, and Ravel says to him, "I should study with you." But he said, "George, better to be a first-rate Gershwin than a second-rate Ravel." And I'll repeat that story in a different guise 100 years later when we talk about the Boyer Rhapsody in Red, White, and Blue. But what I realized was the sound that Gershwin got at the piano. I didn't hear a lot. We didn't hear a lot of it. There's not that much. It was very straightforward and all. But because of his love of impressionism, there are many allusions to Debussy and Ravel music. I know where they are. Even Prokofiev, Rhapsody in Blue opens with a trill and a scale going up to B flat. And Prokofiev did that 3 years before Rhapsody in Blue when he performed his own third piano concerto in New York. And the second movement piano comes in, trill and a scale going up to B flat. And so the colors of the impressionistic language are in Gershwin's music if we see it for that and not just this honky tonk,
Yes.
by writing sing-songy stuff that he and Ira did.
Yeah.
There's impressionistic colors in there that are very much like Ravel and Debussy. And I remember,
and aside from those, would you agree that you mentioned before the sounds that he incorporated, the sounds of New York, had that ever been done before by any other composer? The honking horns, and he captured the energy of New York and all of that.
not that I'm aware of, although there were composers in the 1920s that were doing music reflecting where they were at the time, of course.
Those sounds are those sounds are so timeless because whenever I hear it, it's modern day New York. It's still the same.
Very much. Those some things
I
don't
love
really.
that how he's able to capture that energy that people speak of all the time. The energy of New York is different than anywhere in the world.
Well, who wanted to do that as well? Of course, Leonard Bernstein excelled at
Yes.
that unbelievably. Neil Sedaka did the same. He
Were
wrote a piece
they in,
called,
were they was Bernstein influenced by Gershwin?
yes,
Okay.
Copland, Stravinsky, Gershwin, everything. And Neil Sedaka wrote the Manhattan Intermezzo, which has a lot of New York in it, from what he remembers. And that's a wonderful piano concerto. And I don't know, I remember being in Norway and meeting Anne Brown, who was Gershwin's first best. And she was living in Norway. She came to one of my concerts in Bergen and then invited me to stay in her flat when I was playing in Oslo. She had an extra room. And I sat down and played some Gershwin. And then she sang Summertime for me, which is the song she premiered. She was the first one to sing it. And it was just this gorgeous sound. I mean, really, the story was that Gershwin set out to write this opera called Porgy. There was no best, it was Porgy. And after Anne won the audition for the part of Bess, the more she sang, the more he wrote. Loved her music, her singing. And he wrote more music for her. And he went to the producers and says, her part is so developed here. Why can't we call this Porgy and Bess? And that was how that happened. But Anne stayed a friend till she was in her 90s. Used email also when she was in her 90s. She was a brilliant person, but she was the first best. So it was an interesting connection to Gershwin. I mean, I know Mark Gershwin, George's nephew, very well, and he still loves the music.
Do you know Michael Feinstein? I presume
Of course.
of course you do.
I've never met him.
Oh, really? I'm interested.
No, never met him. The only other pianist I've known, but we haven't met, but we've known each other well, is Billy Stritch, who's brilliant.
Huh?
Just Billy Stritch.
Yes.
He's
Yeah.
terrific.
Are you aware that Michael is the artistic director of the Center for the Performing Arts in Carmel, and his Academy, Songbook Academy and Songbook Foundation is headquartered in Carmel, which is metropolitan
Yeah,
Indy. He is obviously very prominent, and for us to have him in this area is quite a coup.
that's
And
fabulous. I was not aware.
yeah, and someday hopefully you'll have to look it up, but perhaps someday you can you can play at the Palladium. It's a world-class
Yeah,
facility. It's often been the acoustics are phenomenal. Michael was
yeah.
actually on the ground floor of the design of that, and he actually chose the Steinways. And I think that
Mm.
Steinway plant or whatever it's called is factory is out in New Jersey, I believe. But
But up
yeah,
in Astoria, yeah, New York.
yeah. But
Yeah, that would be nice.
I only asked you that because you have so much in common, but
Yeah.
when you mentioned people that you know, I can't imagine the networking you've done. And
Oh, it's a lot. And the internet has helped a lot. I mean, before that, it was a totally different game.
well, I saw that you were way ahead of the pack as far as the internet. And so like in the late 90s, you were teaching online?
Well, I actually created the first concert online that was live streamed from Steinway Hall in New York when they were on 57th
How
Street.
did you stream it? I mean, what was the process you went through to do that? Was there
They
was it Zoom? Did they have Zoom back then? I don't
They
even
didn't,
know.
no, it was they cut these high-speed internet lines, but most people had dial-up through the phone, so it was not quite the same. But it worked. I mean, it took the first time was a delay. Then we came back 3 weeks later and repeated it, and it was direct transmission. I mean, there was a live stream of something else I don't remember, but that was the first classical one. I mean, that was like maybe the second of a live stream of any kind, but that was the first. And then I did the first in Europe a year later. And then I thought, gee, this is nice. I mean, the idea was to really bring classical music closer to people than they haven't had, otherwise, but through a computer. No cell phone.
Would you agree that it sort of became perfected during COVID when so many people had to rely on streaming, including
Yes.
artists to exist to survive?
Well, I did a lot of free concerts every week out of my living room on YouTube.
Uh-huh.
But then I think I played one concert for maybe it was the Troy Chromatic series up in New York, and they paid a fee. And it wasn't a lot, but they paid something to be able to have something for their audiences, for their subscribers. But for the most part, everything was shut down.
How did you do during COVID?
I just taught. It was interesting. There's an incredible place called Sonata Piano Camp in Vermont. And it's been run by a family. Originally, Rosamund van der Linde started it 50 years ago or more. And her daughter, Polly van der Linde, she's still doing piano camps. And her son now is running the Sonatina camp over the summer for the kids. But she put the monthly, there'd be like a week at a time. She had the camp. She put them online on Zoom. That was how she sustained the camps, and people were able to go to camp on Zoom. I played recitals on Zoom from my living room using my laptop and a microphone, and it was really it was very difficult.
And did you have a tip jar?
I wish I did. I
I
should have
mean,
done that.
were people able to support you with their donations, or did you ask for them, or were they free?
No, those
No.
were, I mean, I got paid. The people who attended the camp paid a fee. So
Uh,
I was paid to teach and
okay.
play the 1 hour concert as though we were going to Vermont. We just didn't go to Vermont.
Well, the
But
reason
now
I
they're
asked that, and because you mentioned Billy Stritch, I interviewed him, and Billy actually performed during COVID to pay the bills. And he
yeah,
said there are quite a few other people. He and Linda Lavin put together a
yeah,
show.
I love them.
And they were because they were neighbors. I think she was upstairs. And then Jim Caruso had
Yeah.
his he did his the Castaway, or not Castaway, what was it called? the open mic. He did
Okay.
the open mic night online, had a producer and everything, and his audience expanded greatly all over the world.
Oh yeah.
So
I
I,
didn't do that. Yeah. I mean, I wish I could have done something like that. I don't know if it would
and
have.
then I interviewed a lot of people during COVID because that gave me purpose and kept me busy and whatever. So, it's interesting, don't you think that it's been kind of a blur? I thought there would be a lot more music, books, even a musical about COVID. Maybe they're still being written or composed,
That
or
would be
maybe
it
people
would,
just want to forget it.
I think it would be very a downer. It brings back a very dark period. I mean, I also taught at Brooklyn College online. All our teaching and piano class, where I'm still teaching, the conservatory was online, and it was it's different to teach that way. I mean, I did the first teaching
What was
online in Skype, but it's not the same.
how is it different?
Well, when you're listening to somebody live in a room, you hear the sound in the room. I could teach on Skype, I still do, and
Mhm.
Zoom, but and you could fix things easily, but it's the ambiance of the acoustic of the room makes a big
Mhm.
difference. But during COVID, what I did mostly was I raised the money for the first 50 state project that I was hoping would come after all is said and done.
And that's why you first contacted me because you wanted to talk about that and promote that. So tell me about it.
Well, way back in 98, 1998, I created the first largest consortium of orchestras to celebrate the millennium. And the Pulitzer Prize composer, Ellen Tape Zwillich, was my first composer. And she wrote the Millennium Fantasy, and I had 25 states involved, and there were 27 orchestras. And after that, I thought, wow, let's go for all 50. Let's double it. Let's make 50 states. But this time, orchestras won't pay toward the composer's fee, because usually that's what a commission is. The orchestras pay a fee toward the composer to write the piece. And I had Charles Strauss, Broadway's wonderful Charles. Uh, of course, you know him. He wrote Bye Bye Birdie and Annie, and he was a pupil of Aaron Copland and Nadja Boulanger, and he was brilliant. And Darius Milhaud, he studied in Paris. So we created the Concerto America Project. I raised the money for Charles's fee, and Boston Pops and Honolulu Symphony joined so far, and then 9/11 happened, and I decided not to add more orchestras and put that away. Fabulous piece. He wrote it, I performed it, it's fabulous. But then I started doing more projects, bringing Europe and Canada orchestras into American projects over the years, and different kinds of projects. There were pop music, there was the PDQ Bach Concerto, there was serious music by William Bolton, and all kinds of composers. And during COVID, I thought, I'm going to resurrect the 50 state project and make it happen. So I raised all the money for Peter Boyer to compose the Rhapsody in Red, White, and Blue. And I decided that on that title because I wanted the music to unite people despite all the divisions, because the
Mhm.
flag is red, white, and blue. And then nobody has to question the party of the piece. It is for
Mhm.
everybody.
Mhm.
So I raised the money and I started bringing orchestras in, and it started to build up and build up state by state by state. And then I had two orchestras in a few states, and they said, well, how can you do that? Isn't there one premiere? I said, nope, this is going to be different. There are no buy-ins, which means the orchestras don't pay a fee to belong to the piece for the composer. So I can have as many orchestras in each state be part of this within an exclusive period, which will run through 26, 27. And toward the end of the project, around January of 2023, I had almost all 50 states, but no premiere. And that's when the Utah Symphony programmed it for the world premiere to open the Deer Park Music Festival last June of 2023. Then I
Mm.
raised more money for Peter Boyer came up with a great idea. He said, wouldn't it be great to record this with the London Symphony in time for the Gershwin Centennial of Rhapsody in Blue, which is really why I had created the project in the beginning, which was February of 24. I said, that's going to cost a lot of money. I don't know where to get it. But I did go to a foundation and they paid it out in installments, and we recorded the Rhapsody in Red, White, and Blue at the London Symphony. And it came out in February of 2024.
I hate to interrupt, Jeffrey, but I really like people to hear some of your work. And you know, you have sent me some pieces. What is this first piece that we're going to hear?
Well, I sent you a few pieces. Some of the pieces are from a recording I did that's only released digitally called A Pianist's Journey. And it takes you from when I was younger through the present time. And embracing music I learned when I was younger. And it's almost 4 hours of piano music. And there's some Mendelssohn pieces in there and different composers. I mean,
Let's just take a listen, and then when we come back, we'll go on to talk about the project that we've been speaking about. Well, that certainly reflects your incredible talent, I must say. So let's go on and continue talking about the project.
Yeah. So when I approached Peter Boyer after several composers had said, nah, that's not quite my thing, he said, I don't know. I'll be compared to Gershwin. That's a little daunting. I don't know if I want to take that on. I said, let me tell you a story. When Gershwin went to Paris, as I mentioned before, to meet Maurice Ravel, and Ravel said, better you should be a first-rate Gershwin and not a second-rate Ravel. I said, how about you be a first-rate Peter Boyer and not a second-rate George Gershwin? Be yourself. And that's what turned him on to doing it. And he did a fabulous job. Ended up getting, so far, we have 55 orchestras in all 50 states. And I'd like to see it keep building, actually, so that the roster of orchestras, they'll be listed in every conductor's score in perpetuity. And the unusual part of the project also that helped promote it was getting endorsements. And I have 44 endorsements, which cover such a wide range of people in the industry, from David Foster to Betty Buckley to Ann Hampton Callaway, Melissa Manchester, composers Ellen Tate Willick, administrators of orchestras, David Hilsup, Henry Fogel, who ran the Association of Orchestras, and Danny Burston and Dan Lauria. I mean, Charles Strauss wrote it. It goes on and on. And it really helped because I didn't want it just for now to promote the project, but for the voices of the people who are part of our industry in the entertainment world to have said something about the importance of music and the importance of celebrating Gershwin and also the project itself. I felt like that meant something. I mean, even conductors who did not conduct it, Leonard Slack and Joanne Falletta, although she did bring the Buffalo Philharmonic into the project, having conductors endorse it, also composers, actors, Mark Gershwin, it just validates the necessity of music during this time. And that's why I've done over 25 projects in 25 years, because I wanted for pianists to be able to go back in time and pluck out any number of pieces to perform in 50, 60 years from now. So there's a lot of repertoire. There's a lot of wonderful pieces.
You made reference to the time that we are in. Can you be specific?
Well, I think the country's always evolving, and there will always be people who have certain faiths and certain beliefs. And I think the goal is really that we all need to just agree to disagree. And that's why, for me, as a musician, having music unite us as best as possible through music is really my goal, because it's all I can really do. We can't move mountains, but music is a powerful tool. When you go back in time and listen to pop music, I mean, for me, the three great years of pop music, the way it went from stage to stage very rapidly, 64, 69, and 1973, pivotal years of music. And I think music really did travel very quickly from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and the 80s. The styles changed very rapidly, and then it started to plateau, I think, to some extent. So I think the music of our time, the composers that I have gathered to write all these different pieces are reflecting the harmonic language, the melodic language, the styles. I think we're almost we're kind of in a time of what I call neo-impressionism. I don't know. I think it's an interesting time we're in. There's a lot of music, and the technology has certainly helped us embrace all the styles of music.
As a reviewer, I review music, theater, and dance. So I spend at least 2, 3 days a week in a concert hall or a theater. And it's often occurred to me that politics, it's kind of, you check your politics at the door. You don't know who's red or who's blue and what their, philosophies or theories about politics are. You're just sitting next to oftentimes strangers, and but we all have that, we're appreciating the music or the art and, together. And it seems like these days it's refuge for me from all the noise, right?
Well, the technology has also created a lot of the noise because
Yes.
it's like anything else. Things, if anything in excess is not good. But that's
Mhm.
why I titled this The Rhapsody in Red, White, and Blue. I mean, of course, it pays tribute to Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue centennial this year, but that's over soon. And that's why I made the project go through to cover all the orchestras in the project to 26, 27. But we're also celebrating America at 250. So that's the other bookend of the project.
Well, I mean, that just tells you it's timeless. I mean, you don't need an
Exactly.
anniversary, you don't need an anniversary to appreciate it, right?
Well, you do as a hook to at least make it attractive for that time. But looking
Hmm.
back, when you look back, it's like, oh yeah, well, it was for that. But
Hmm.
the piece has to have its own legs to stand on. And if it's really a great piece,
And
that's what's important.
I bring up Michael Feinstein again because of his connection. He was a protege of Ira Gershwin's, and he speaks about Gershwin. Obviously, the Gershwin brothers are a huge, huge, huge influence on him musically and every other which way. But anyway, Michael is trying to preserve and promote the Great American Songbook, and he always
Yes.
makes sure that audience. He gets asked all the time, well, what's the cutoff point for the Great American Songbook? And he says, well, really, it's still the music is still being added to the songbook. He doesn't,
Mhm.
he says, I don't know who came up with the term, but as far as I'm concerned, there's music that anything that stands the test of time,
Yep.
And the other night I reviewed Barry Manilow concert, and it occurred to me there, some of his music is going to end up in the Great American Songbook. And
Oh, cool.
who determines, Well, if it's still being played, and it's still being appreciated the way, would you agree the way, when I was growing up, I'm 76, so I grew up listening to the 40s, and it's still
Mhm.
being played.
Oh yeah.
And then my college years were the 60s, and I just went to a Beatles tribute, and so on and so forth. That music's it will continue to be with us, right?
I believe so. And the YouTube has been a tremendous resource for music and of all styles. And I think technology has given people the opportunity to access music more than they were ever able
You
to do.
know, Jeffrey, I still marvel that I've got Spotify and iTunes and Amazon, and any music from music history that was ever recorded is all I have to do
Mhm.
is like touch my screen on my iPhone.
It's true.
Well,
Yeah.
even Zoom. I mean, technology is really it's a miracle. It's a miracle
It is. I mean, when
that
I
can be
came up
used for
with,
good.
well, that's what you need. I mean, when I came up with the idea of the internet concert, it was not done, not even thought of. And I knew it would evolve and hoped it would. And now you could see operas and symphony concerts, ballets, shows, all everything you could see on your phone. But that was 25 years ago. So it's more than that. 27 years ago, I did that, and it took a quarter of a century to get to this point, which I think is great. I think it's a
Mhm.
wonderful thing.
And it's continually evolving, who
Yes.
knows? Who knows what the possibilities will bring? But I mean, and now that we've got artificial intelligence out there,
Well, yeah,
continuing, I mean, the possibilities for music, I mean, I just simply can't fathom what it could
I
do
know. I don't mind
positively.
it. I don't mind it as long as it doesn't take away the human element.
Exactly, exactly. Well, do you think what do you think about it composing stuff?
Well, I just hope it doesn't say, "Hey, we just created Beethoven's 33rd piano sonata he never wrote." I mean,
Someone's
you know,
doing that though. You know how human
no.
nature is.
Yeah, because then what was timeless becomes, then they'll start a whole new wave of creating music that is not by the original person.
Speaking of creating music, your canon, if you will, is just, I marvel at how much you've done in all the areas, all your pursuits. But here's another piece that we're going to listen to. Well, once again, an extraordinary example of your work. But thank you so much for sharing that. I'm sure our listeners will love that as much as I did. Okay, so what are you currently working on besides the project,
Yeah.
which is coming
Oh,
soon? Go ahead.
well, I'm doing Adolphus Hailstork's third piano concerto in February of 2025. That'll be the first performance with the Pacific Symphony. He's one of the most respected composers of our time. He's, I think, 82 now, maybe three. And then James Lee is writing a concerto in A for me, which is a tribute to the concerto in F. Gershwin's centennial of that piece in 2025. And that's a wonderful piece coming. And Melissa Manchester's concerto, Awake, is a 5-movement suite for piano and orchestra. And I'm waiting word any day to hear that that's getting premiered next summer. So those are the things.
Okay, so again, Melissa Manchester and her role is?
She wrote the piano part and she brought an orchestrator in. And so it became, because I asked her, would you write a piano concerto? I mean, it's an interesting story. I always loved her music. And I got to know her through social media and invited her to my YouTube concerts during COVID. And she came online and she told me, I loved your Beethoven. I said, do you know that Beethoven sonata? She says, what do you mean, do I know it? I grew up with classical music. And she said her father was the bassoonist of the Metropolitan Opera Orchestra. So the classical music was in that. Yeah. She went every week to the rehearsals. So she knew all the operas and she loved classical music. It's just she paid her bills with pop music. So I thought that she'd make a wonderful piece. I've done this with pop composers. With Jimmy Webb wrote a wonderful piece. Peter Tork wrote a quirky piece, and I play Neil Sedaka's piece. And I think it's interesting to hear the classical voices of people who are best known in pop music.
And
David
this
Foster
is
wrote lots of music like that.
these people that you're talking about, this came as a result of that entrepreneurship we talked about in the beginning,
I don't know if it's that or if it's just I've always loved pop music growing up. I used to buy all the
No,
records and
I'm
but
referring
yeah,
to your talent for networking. I
I
love
think it
that.
yeah,
But so that actually
I like it.
that's why what we share in common, Jeffrey, because through my work, and I hope you come to Indianapolis, whoever hears this, and I'm in contact with a lot of people who run these venues and the bookers and all these people, and I hope people who hear this will consider bringing you here because this what I'm hearing is extraordinary. And by the way, at the risk of name dropping, let me name drop the fact that Melissa Manchester, a lot of people come to Indianapolis. It's become like an entertainment hub because of Michael's the Center for the Performing Arts, the Indianapolis Symphony. We've got two world-class cabarets that bring in the top, performers from Broadway. I mean, it's astounding what's going on here, and I have a good bird's eye view of it because I cover all of it, and I meet all these people, and I have access to interviewing them. Melissa Manchester was one of them. She's close to Michael Feinstein. He brought her here to be a mentor for his Songbook Academy. So she did workshops and master classes. And the list goes on and on and on of so many of the people that you mentioned, who've been to Indianapolis. And of course, who tour. Ann Hampton Calloway and Liz Calloway are going to be on this podcast
That's
in
great.
October, and I'm very excited about that. So anyway, we
That's
share a
great.
lot. We share a lot in common, and I love hearing these collaborations that you have.
Yeah, I mean, I got to Anne really because when I heard Barbara Streisand's Christmas recording of 2001 and I heard Christmas Lullaby, and then when Steinway asked me to put together a Christmas album, I told them we must have the Christmas Lullaby in there. But of course, I don't sing, but I created piano solo transcriptions of that. And also David Foster's Grown-Up Christmas List, which Barbara had on her recording, which is all going vinyl now, by the way. Hers, the Streisand Christmas recordings. And so that's how I got to know Anne, because of that transcription. I had to get her permissions, of course. But I love her music. I think the two of them, they're just incredible talents. They're amazing.
Have you ever seen the two of them together perform?
Only the snippets online. I haven't seen
Mhm.
performances. So yeah.
And do you yourself see a lot of live performances?
Sometimes I don't get a chance to do that often enough because I'm either working, performing, or teaching, and then family. So it's hard to just get out and just have a good old
So,
grand time
so
with my friends.
tell me about your family, your
Okay,
family
so
life.
my family life. So I'm married since 1990. My wife's a pianist, but she teaches a lot.
What is
And
her name?
Sharon,
Okay. And
yeah,
how did you two meet?
we blind date. Blind
Oh,
date. Somebody my father knew, where he worked at the hospital, knew somebody who knew people. And as soon as she heard that I was a pianist, she's like, ah, that's it. And that's how we met in 1988. And oddly enough, she studied with a teacher who I met in 1977. And he sent me to his teacher, Julliard. If he took me on at Brooklyn College in 79, I would have met her like almost a decade earlier. So it worked
mhm.
out that way. We have two boys. One is a surgeon, one's an attorney. But the attorney plays in an orchestra. He's a percussionist, but
Yeah, I saw that in your bio. And what is his
yeah,
name?
Evan.
What's
Evan
Evan?
played, yeah, he's a percussionist. And Craig
Okay.
played cello, but he's a cello and piano, but he hasn't really played in a long time because the surgical career is grueling. Residency is grueling. So he hasn't had a chance to do that. But
Wow. So when it came to him deciding whether he was going to have a life as a musician or a doctor, I
yeah,
mean,
always medicine. It was always medicine since he was a little.
interesting.
Always, always, always.
Well, I understand that musicians, are also, they have a lot in common with scientists and engineers and people who have those technical abilities. Does that run true with your son? Left and right
It,
brain?
it, it could be. I mean, I
Yeah.
think if people have a love for music, it's going to come through no matter what. I mean, there are orchestras comprised of people that have day jobs and then they go at night to rehearsals and make music because they love to. So I
Yeah.
think it's an all walks of life kind of thing. I don't know how the brain works because I'm a musician and I didn't do so great in science and math. And it's
Uh-huh.
just, I don't know if the two go together. So
You know,
just because of that.
things change, and I think one of the bios I read was, I don't know, I saw an interview that you did with someone from Julliard, and I think that it's an older one, so there things may have changed, and it referred to the fact that you were are you still at Brooklyn College teaching?
25 years I've been there. Mhm.
Wow. So you live in Manhattan.
Nope, I live in Long Island actually,
Okay. Whereabouts in Long Island?
on South Shore.
Okay, all right.
Sure.
And so do you spend a lot of time in the city or can you work remotely or what do you do?
Believe it or not much time in the city. I haven't been there in a couple of years since I played. I'm going to teach for Tone Base, which is a big organization for piano and other instruments. I'm teaching a master class in November for them in the city. So most of my work's really everywhere, but unless I have a concert. And um,
Tell
yeah.
me, before I forget, tell me about the process of commissioning an orchestra. What is that process?
Oh, it's like being a fuller brush man going door to door. You have to raise money from usually you get the money from orchestras that pay a share fee, a buy-in, as they say, they buy into the project. And that you keep building that until you reach the fee that the composer needs to write the piece. Then you go to contract. Most of the time lately, I've done it without the orchestras, especially from COVID. They didn't have a lot of money to do that. Um, so I would get it from private donors or foundations and just work it that way. Um, when I worked with the Dallas Symphony, when they did a piece of mine that I wrote and another piece, they paid toward it and I raised the rest of the money toward it. So it depends. Each one is very different. So I've
Mhm.
learned the dynamics of it, but it's a lot of work. I don't get paid a fundraising fee. I get paid to play the concerts, but not all the work that goes into it. And it's a lot of work. It's a
Mhm.
daily emails. It's not so much phone calls. It's mostly emails and Messenger and Instagram and Twitter. And I mean, it's not easy. I mean, it's basically you're fundraising money for the composer, but you're also building the repertoire, which was really the goal, to build repertoire and to get the pieces performed. And then I always tell composers, look, this is not about me. It's not about you. It's about building repertoire. The piece may get performed a lot outside of the project, or it may not. It could take decades until someone else picks it up. But that's what it is. A lot of great music that was written hundreds of years ago were not performed during their lifetime of the composer. And music that we think now is immortal, a lot of it was not considered that way when they were premiered. They were destroyed by the critics, and then they became, timeless masterpieces.
Oh, I would love to sit on in on some of your classes because this has been really fascinating talking to you, Jeffrey. I'm so happy that we finally were able to connect and we'll stay in touch
Please,
because
please.
I would like to I would really like to hear you hear your music live sometime. And again, I really am happy that we were able to connect. So how can people find you? Do you have a website?
I do. JeffreyBiegel.com.
Mm-hmm.
I changed that because it was originally the internet concert I called cyberrecital.com. That was the original one when the word cyber was something, cyber recital. I stopped that and changed it to just jeffreybeagle.com. YouTube, people could find me on YouTube. Just type my name in and you'll get right to that channel. called Biegel 88 because of the 88 keys on the piano. And SoundCloud. There's a lot of different places
So
to find.
really, people can just Google you, and there's all kinds
That's
of
all.
stuff on there. Yeah.
Probably that's the easiest way.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you so much. It's such a joy and an honor to chat with you today, and I appreciate it deeply.
And I do as well. Thank you for inviting me into your world and to your listeners' world. And it's always interesting because it gives you a chance to soul search and reflect and kind of make sense of this crazy life.
And I'm going to do everything in my power to get you to Indy. It's
I'd love to
time.
come back. I'd love to come back. It's been since 2006. It's a long time.
Okay. All right. Well, you take care.
You too, and be well, and good luck with everything.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Our thanks go out to our media sponsor, Urban Times. Urban Times is a monthly news magazine which serves as the official neighborhood newsletter for 16 Indianapolis neighborhoods, offering news about development, arts and entertainment, and from the business community.
Who will take center stage on the podcast next? Your seat on the aisle with Tom Alvarez awaits. Follow Tom on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, and make sure to visit tomalvarez.studio. Watch Tom every other Thursday on Lifestyle Live on Wish TV, and make sure to listen every week here on the All Indiana Podcast Network.